I am so excited to introduce the couple that is joining us today, Christa and Brian. They came to our intensive last September and I got to personally meet them and just absolutely fell in love. They've been married for almost 30 years and the connection codes has transformed how they show up and communicate with each other. From the vulnerability that they now share to the active listening, being able to create space for each other in their home. They're going to share what that transformation has looked like today. Welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast where we break open the emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tiara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife, Phyllis. Together, they have founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends. We are so excited for Christa and Brian to be on the podcast with us today. Yes. And before we pushed record, we actually were reminiscing because we got to be with them earlier this year in March and sit on their incredibly beautiful,
sat on that exact
that porch and spent time together. And that's one of the things I think I love about the Connection Codes is the relationships, the friendships that we have developed, not because we went to school together or because we've lived in the same area, and it's because the Connection Codes has brought us together. And it's, to me, I love even the depth of relationship with people that we don't know, but yet the first time we meet, there's just a bond and a connection, and definitely have felt that with Brian and Christa. And so welcome. Thank you for being with us today. And for the sake of our audience, tell us a little bit about you guys.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking us. This is special. A little bit about us. I'm Christa.
This is Brian.
And we, in April, it'll be 30 years of marriage for us.
Yay.
So here we are. It's like, even just saying that, I feel like, what? How is that possible? So we are new. We're empty nesters now. And so we're like in this stage, figuring it out and still learning and still growing, still finding new tools. And so with even finding the connection codes, if I could, that's like a fun story for me to tell. So
Love it.
So just one of those things, like scrolling on Instagram, like connection codes. I want to know what that is. And so it just started me. I'm a little bit of this little honeybee that's just looking around. I have my antenna up. I want to learn new things. I want a code. And so I just started digging around a little bit, and I had noticed that you had advertised about an intensive weekend, and it feels really special even doing this podcast this weekend because it was literally like 1 year ago. And so I called and I was like, hey, I'd like to get on the list. But like the word intensive, I feel I'm intense. I don't know if I need an intensive, but I need something.
Wow.
But wow, so glad we showed up. And then, so I am a little bit of the one who's, Brian, I got an idea. Do you want to do this? And I'm just really thankful that he makes things low stakes. And he's, yeah, okay, go to Nashville. And so part of going to the intensive, I had to tell Brian, we're going to have a Zoom call with them before we show up. So it's today, it's 7:00. And I really remember that Zoom call really well. And just Glenn starting it with like, where do you miss each other? And like, where do you connect? And I just remember that's such a beautiful question. And then Brian, I think I felt a little, and so Brian started. And do you want to say what you said?
No, go ahead.
And so Brian was like, in our relationship, Christa is the feelings girl and I'm the logic guy. Like, she does all the feelings and I don't really do that. And then I just remember there was like a pause, and then Glenn said, duh, in all of his wisdom, Brian, what if I told you like that just isn't true? What if I told you that really you do have all of these feelings? It's just learning to name them. It's learning to move through them. It's learning to be with them. And I just, in that moment, was like, okay, take our money. We're coming. I'm all in. Yes.
Whoa.
And Brian, what did you think?
Oh yeah, this is 100% challenging for me. It's digging deep for me, but it's absolutely from growing up in a large mixed family and a divorce and a lot of problems. And I felt like I needed to deal with my own problems myself. And so I guess majority of the time dealing with those problems, I would shove those emotions back here in the back. And then they would only come out when you really got angry or you really got hurt or you were really sad. Then it's a whole stack of sadness and it's a whole stack of hurt instead of dealing with, oh yeah, I got hurt with that. So that's where it was for me. But no, I was mainly joking, but I think in that situation, what I said is I got my feelings hurt in the 6th grade. And so I haven't really got them hurt. So I haven't allowed them to be hurt since. And that's when Glenn stepped in and said, no, that's not the case. So but a great lesson learned for sure.
Yeah, but Brian's psyche is protecting him when he's wounded from whenever, way back when. He's a smart guy. So he's okay, so protect yourself. And of course, then he meets this remarkable human named Christa. And she just wants to know the authentic Brian. She adores the real, at the core, vulnerable Brian. And so then she's on this quest, this mission to always find him, but he has trouble finding himself. So ain't no way he's going to be able to convey to her authentically. Wow. And it's so beautiful. I mean, Crystal, literally when I say that, you just hug the guy. You're just like, yes, this is my guy. This is my friend. This is who I want to partner with. The real, authentic. Are you guys old enough to remember the show? Was it called What's My Line? Where somebody come on, they say, whatever, my name is so-and-so. I'm a circus acrobat. But there'd be like 3 or 4 of them they would all say the same thing. And then at the end, the host would go, will the real, Brian Perotti, please stand up. And each of them would start to stand up. Finally, the real Brian Perotti would stand up. That's all we're doing. Christa wants to see the real Brian Perotti. She doesn't want these inauthentic versions of him. She wants the real one because that's who she adores. That's who she can dance with. And that's what makes life so rich, is seeing the real, whole, authentic person. Wow, I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I love that y'all are remembering details that I'm not remembering, like that first Zoom call connection. And that's so encouraging. And then just the time that we got to spend together here in Tennessee when you guys did come for this weekend intensive. And it was a lot of growth through that weekend. But I love, even since then, just what I shared to start with, that we were able to come and be with you guys in your home. We were passing through. It was really just a few hours, and yet so special and so rich. And it is, to me, what I love so much. Right. And for you guys to trust to come to Tennessee for an intensive with people you don't know, and to me, there always is a fear behind that. Like what are we getting ourselves into? Yeah. What is this going to be like? Meeting a bunch of strangers. And so I love that y'all put yourselves in those places. And what, do you have any memories of that a year ago weekend that really stands out to you? Like a moment that was really good?
It's really such a special memory for me. One kind of side note, because I do listen to the podcast, and I once remember shortly after the intensive when Glenn was doing the wheel, I quote you a lot, Glenn, but it was like fear that people have come to this and then it'll last a couple days and then will it really stick? And so I guess just saying, like, here we are a year later and we still have so much to grow in, but it has been a year of using the tool. And so I just feel like when we were there, like we did come with willing hearts, like we were hungry, and it was really sweet, like 8 couples, all just really, yeah, like I said, just hungry for like new tools. And it was just such a sweet time. And just being with you and how real both of you are. I loved just not really feeling put on the spot. Like we could go at our own pace and just really do our own connecting. But the ooh thing, like I just remembered too, like when we were driving back to the hotel one night, there was something going on at home. And so I was like, yeah, what do you think's going to happen about this? And I just remember for the first time in real time, Brian was like, oh yeah. And I just was like, this works. But I just remember my whole nervous system, like my whole body was like, I have been longing for this, but really experiencing, I think, even before we had left your property and stuff, I was like, oh, yay, the ooh, it works. I love it.
Yeah, we call it the power of the ooh. It's, this is all based on research. That's the reason it works, not because Phyllis and Glenn wrote about it on page 103 of the book. It's because it's based on the human condition. We're just the founders. We discovered it. It was already true before we were born. But and my impression of Brian and Christa is he adores you so much. He wants to fix everything for you. And from an incredibly good heart, great intention, beautiful motivation, he tries to fix. And for him to be able to just ooh you and just be present with you and allow you to experience what you experience for, the research says, 19 seconds is just stunning. And Phyllis was the fixer in our relationship for so many years or decades. And she's just been startled at how easy it is once she got good at doing. And we sometimes say, and we don't mean it the way it sounds, but when she learned to not care, and again, she cares about me, but when because the vast majority of the time, she's just not thrown whatever I share. She's just, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I hear you. Yep, that's a lot. Yep, and then I feel seen and heard, and literally 25 seconds later, we're good. And she didn't fix anything.
Wow.
And she's mesmerized by that because she's, oh my gosh, how much time did I spend trying to help Glenn? And it made it worse. How much time did I try to help the boy? And we would end up in some big conflict about it for 3 hours or 3 days. And now she doesn't care anymore. She's just, oh, wow. And again, she cares about me, but she gets it that Glenn's experiencing what he's experiencing. He's not trying to feel wounded. He's not trying to feel shame. He just does. And so if she oohs the boy, he'll process it in 20 seconds and we're rocking.
I don't know, Christa, if you just said it or Brian earlier, just about Christa was she was the feeling one. And how did you describe Brian? Or Brian, did you describe yourself? What?
I think I said he uses logic. He's logical one. Yeah.
Okay. And when I think that in a lot of relationships, that's common, that we take on that, in a way, we take on that role. I don't know that I think about myself, and Glenn constantly now is saying, I'm discovering who Phyllis really is. When I'm 60 years old, and it's like,
you're 60?
I am.
Oh my
and Glenn
gosh, can you believe that?
He's discovering me because I'm discovering me.
Yeah.
And early on in our married life, I think you also sometimes say it started before that. I saw as a child that being productive, being a task-oriented person was very much acceptable. It was expected. It was, admired. And so I leaned into that direction from an early age on. And then I married someone who I immediately realized, not before we were married, but after, that he was all over the place. And so I was like, oh, he's the emotional one. and I'm the steady, but also because Glenn was dealing and really challenged with obsessive compulsive disorder, for him to get a task done, because it had to be perfect and it had to be in a system that he created. So like even putting away the dishes was so challenging for him because he had to create first the system, the perfect system, and then make sure the perfect system is clean. For example, you can't just put silverware away. You have to clean the container the silverware goes in before you can put the silverware away.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely. And so
now putting silverware away doesn't take 45 seconds. It takes me 15 minutes. And
so,
this poor girl sitting over there going, I thought we were just putting the silverware away.
And so I learned early in our married life, just you better do it, Phyllis, because you can do it in 2 minutes and Glenn will do it in 15 and we don't have 15 minutes. Wow. And so I think that I became that person to balance out or counter what was happening with Glenn. Right. And so thanks to the connection codes, and I began to tune into myself, like what is really happening with me? I think my mind was blown when I learned that my brain housed emotions and Glenn's brain houses emotions. Like we both have emotions happening to us. I really did not believe that. I always believed I could opt out. And I thought it's interesting, even Brian, when you said you got your feelings hurt in 6th grade, and that's it. I'm not doing that again. And it's like that one incident or that time in your life, at least, you made decisions that put you into the logic. I'm a logical person, right? And so it created this dynamic that you guys have had. And now it's just incredible to us to see how Connection Codes is playing out for the two of you.
Yeah, I love it. What struck you the most with the Connection Codes? And we've touched on that already. What stuck with you, biggest takeaways for you? And at what point did you, and again, Chris, you already said that, but at what point did you go, okay, this is worth figuring out. This is worth using.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's, again, I think the way it landed on me, like just really feeling heard because back to how a lot of times I said that already. Okay, but why do I still feel like I'm feeling? And so I guess my biggest takeaway was just the joy of experiencing what it really feels to feel heard, like that felt sense.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, yummy. I love it.
What about for you, Brian?
For me, it's absolutely, I guess it's made me a better person because it's still a challenge for me to dig into some of these feelings, especially like the anger one, because I'm a very consistent person and so I'm like, okay, I got to think of something I got angry about. Oh yeah, that did make me angry, but it's still, for me, it's still a work in progress because I got to dig a little bit. It's not that easy. Some of the pieces of the pie aren't really, they don't come natural or easy for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the reason the whole setup, doing the core emotion wheel every day, and it just takes 2 minutes per person, is because for most of us, because Phyllis always said I was the emotional one, I was clueless. I looked emotional, which has made it impossible for her. But I didn't know how to actually convey emotions. I was clueless. You probably heard me say, if you'd asked me 25 years ago, Glenn, how often do you get hit with shame? I would have said never, because I was drowning in shame. Does a fish know that it's wet? I was always in shame. So I'm like, I don't ever feel shame. And now I realize, oh, okay, I get hit with shame probably as much now as I did 25 years ago. I just process it in 10 seconds now. Literally, I'm just able to go, whoo, felt some shame about that. Phyllis goes, ooh, what happened with shame? What I meant? Oh, that person said that thing, and I just got hit with shame. She goes, what do you need? I'm like, nothing. Just need to process the shame. And we're rolling. And literally, we're 10, 15 seconds into this, which stuns me that this is even a thing. I would not have thought, because I was strangled by shame for so many years. Most of my life, I felt so inadequate, so less than, so unseen, unheard, et cetera, et cetera. And now to be able to process it through, again, literally in 15 seconds, I'm like, whoa. It's funky stuff. And also, just one other thing about that, Brian, when we start recognizing the difference between primary anger and secondary anger, that primary anger is that driver. Mm-hmm. Dude, I've been around. You are a very successful person. The core level anger is what got you to do some stuff that you didn't feel like doing. And everybody that's successful did a bunch of things they didn't feel like doing. And there have been so many times in Brian's life, and again, I can see the result of it. That's why I know it's true. That Brian's like, okay, we got to get this thing done. Here we go. Let's get it done. That's core level anger. That's adrenaline that's seeping into your bloodstream that powers you up so you can get that thing done that you didn't even feel like doing. Because I know that there have been times that you didn't even feel like going to work. You know, like, let's see, I can hang out with this amazing woman that I just adore, or I can go to work. Ugh, I got to go to work. That's core level anger that gets you to actually do the thing that needs to be done when you don't feel like doing it. Wow, I love it. Okay, you're great. And you've already addressed that, Brian, because you're so smart. You're way ahead of our questions. So what have been the biggest challenges for you with the connection codes, things that you're like, that's a tough one for me?
Me?
Sure.
It's tough for me to keep it little or to keep it right size, to keep it within just a couple of minutes, because I love it so much. So it's hard to keep it like, oh. And then the other thing is just staying really curious. I think like I've been on that whole journey of just staying curious. And so maybe when Brian is sharing, to just lean in with, oh yeah, and not maybe assigning like a judgment to certain things, but just staying soft, staying curious, staying present. Yeah, that's for me.
Wow. I love it. What about for you, Brian?
I think the same. Just keeping it concise for both of us is a challenge for both of us. But we have 3 grown adult children, and so it's just her and I. So we do have the time that we can sit down and talk.
Yeah,
it's not too bad.
Yes, we've got to meet your kids. They're pretty amazing. We talk about that from time to time. Just that dinner was amazing.
Yeah, and your granddaughter. Really cool. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
so sweet.
Really special.
In thinking about the connection codes, often we start with our, if you're in a married relationship, we start with using the tools in the marriage arena. And then when you start seeing what a difference that makes, it's so easy to then want to share, want to kind of spread this to others. And I think with you guys, maybe you could just share a little bit about that, how it has actually made a difference in other relationships and possibly even with your children.
I love this question. I love sharing. I love sharing this so much. We were just on vacation in California with some special friends, and we know these friends well. And we were at a beautiful hotel and just in this really 92-degree, like thermal pool, like just a beautiful setting, and just connecting with our friends. And so I think probably because I'm, like I said, this little bee who's, what can we do? But I think it came up about how it has impacted us. And then we were like, do you want us to, I don't know, show you or just like model through this? And they were just like, yes, please.
Dang.
I was a little, oh gosh, here we go. Okay.
And it's just us 4 in this big swimming pool.
Wow.
Yeah. But I felt so much joy. Brian was just so all in, and he's like, hey man, now listen, this is going to blow your mind. You're working yourself out of a job. You don't have to fix anything.
Oh my gosh, Brian.
And then when he started a little bit, no, just be with her. So it was so special. And really, as I look back over our week-long vacation, like, it was just one of the most tender moments of the whole trip. But to be able to connect with people like very quickly, and very vulnerably and very beautifully, it's just, this takes people years sometimes, you know, but it's wonderful. And then in little groups that I facilitate, even here at this table, I've introduced it to some of these ladies, and people are amazed. So it's been a really special thing to share.
Yeah. Brian, I remember at the intensive, you were just such a powerful force you're a very dynamic person. People just look to you. You walk in the room and you look like you probably be in charge or something.
Yes.
And that's just so powerful. Wow. I don't know. I just admire that so much. I love it.
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes when you see someone who is successful, and even in your job, Brian, you tell people what to do all day long, and then to even think, yes, I'm the logical one, and yet to be that vulnerable. To me, it speaks volumes to people, to men especially, in your status, your line of work, your age, even, to be able to go, here's a tool that has changed my marriage and it's just, I love that. I love that with friends would go, let us do this. Let us just show you. I think that's the most powerful thing is when people see it in action. And Glenn and I have learned that over the past even 2 years. It's like when we're with people and we can just say, hey, let us just show you how this works. Yeah. We were in a restaurant with a couple just last week that we were meeting for the first time, and we didn't know them. They didn't know us. They came in from California. We just were made an introduction through someone else. And so we talked for a while, and then we said, let us just show you how this tool works. And we did it. And whoa, did it change the whole conversation instantly at that table. And that is so amazing to me when I always see that happen.
Yeah. And we're experiencing that. The connection codes have spread enough now that almost everywhere we travel, when people hear about it, they'll say, oh, let's have coffee or lunch, whatever. And sometimes events just spontaneously get organized, which is awesome. And then we meet people that we've never met before, and we bond with them, just like you said, Christa, in 45 minutes, in 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like and just like with the two of you, I could just do anything with you. We could go on a cruise, we could hang out. We don't really have any history together, but because we're at the core, because we're authentic, vulnerable, there's just bonding in that, which again is the human condition. That's what we're coded to do. All babies bond, all babies connect. Somewhere along the way, we get knocked off course and we lose it. Unfortunately, we're just trying to get reactivate everybody's coding so that we get back to that. So amazing. I love it. Okay, we want to try to get them to.
Before we go to the wheel, so we always end our podcast with a wheel, but love maybe from each of you. And one thing, if you could tell someone who's, I've heard about connection codes. I don't know. Is it really worth pursuing? There's so many things out there. Why bother? What would be the one thing that you would say to someone who either you're introducing it to for the first time, or someone who has heard about it, but is, there's so many things. Why bother doing one more thing? What would you say to them?
Do the connection codes.
You would just break out in song.
Yeah, I would just break out in song and dance because it's so worth celebrating. There's so much hope in this. And I think that even like how I felt like a lot of emotion just telling about that very first Zoom call. So I feel like what I would want to say is like to anyone who's, no, I don't know. We've got so many habits, like it's been this way for a really long time. I just feel like this whole thing, there's a lot of hope in it, and it's simple. Like we didn't have to read 14 books and then go to this one location and stand just like this. It's pretty simple. You have to work it. So I would just say there's a lot of hope in it. And I also feel like people need to just know that like you're worth it. Like relationships are so key. Like they're everything. Your relationship is worth investing in. And it's brave. Like it's brave to show up.
Oh my goodness.
It's brave to sign up. But wow, like the domino effect. And even like we didn't touch too much into like our kids, but yeah, like the domino effect of letting this be lived out is really powerful.
And for me, talking to other men about it, depending upon their reaction, if it's a negative reaction, I think that the two selling points that I give are, number one, you hear just a sigh of relief when you tell another man, hey, it only needs to last 2 minutes. That's it. And they're just like, I think I can handle that. I really, and then you tell them, hey, all your wife wants to know is that she's being heard. That's it. You're not fixing anything. You're not doing anything special. It's not going to take a whole heck of a lot of your energy other than saying ooh or ah. And after that, I think that you get a little bit more positive reaction.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
And again, the reason that everything you said is true, Brian, is because it's based on the human condition. It's not a personality profile. It's not a theory of philosophy. You don't have to go learn Latin or quote the periodic table. It's really just Brian relaxing into himself. And most of us have been walking sideways so long that we have muscle memory to not do this. But really, I don't want people to try harder. I want them to try less. I want Brian just to relax into himself and say, oh, what's happening with me? What am I missing? Oh, babe, I felt some sadness earlier. I felt some loneliness. It was a pain experience because you were hanging out with your friends and I thought you were going to be home at 4 and you didn't get home till almost 5. And I just felt lonely because I like you and I miss you. And there's a lot of joy in you getting home and you didn't get home for 50 minutes later. She can handle that, but that's just Brian relaxing. That was already happening. He didn't have to go find it somewhere else. It's already inside of him. For him to be able to tell her that. And then this girl will just fall into you like, oh, so that's what was happening. And what typically happens is he's pissed because she's 50 minutes late. And then he shows her the secondary anger, which is masking the core. And then they're at war for the next, who knows what, hours, days. We specialized in 3-week conflicts. We were overachievers. We had maximized we spent in that conflict. And now we rarely ever take more than 30 seconds to process through stuff, which blows my mind. I cannot believe this is even a thing. And if you told me that 25 years ago, I'd be like, shut up. That's stupid. Because I would have thought you were making fun of it. Hey, dude, you could do this in 30 seconds. I'm like, shut up. It takes at least 3 days to do. And now that we're living, I'm like, are you kidding me? We're smart people. How did we miss this so badly, so much for so long? So, well.
Okay, I think did we already mention this, that we always end our podcasts with the core emotion wheel, and we would love for you guys to do the core emotion wheel for us today.
Okay.
You're going to go first?
You want me to?
Please.
Okay. All right. Let me settle in. I usually start with anger. Yeah, we had a special date night Thursday, and it was just really connective and really special. And then at the end of the night, Brian was like, hey, could I bring up something really challenging? And it was late, and I just felt angry because it was just a hard way to end a nice night. Shame for me. I feel some shame about, even when I said in the beginning, like, ooh, like I'm intense. Do I go to an intensive? I feel shame for making things high stakes, even something like the podcast, like this thing I do. And I feel some shame about that. Guilt. I feel guilt for putting pressure on you, like to be a certain way. I feel guilty for that. Fear. This is a fun season of my life, and I'm really stepping into some things that I just am so passionate about. And so sometimes I feel hit with fear of, I hope I can do it. And I hope these dreams really come to life. Lonely. Yeah, back to the emptiness. Like it's quiet around here. And so at times I feel a little isolated and sad. I think we do love our kids so much. And I think there are times when I feel like, ooh, maybe I've missed. What have I missed a little bit? Maybe sometimes of not attuning like I would really love to. And then hurt. Yeah, I think I feel hurt. When we do get into a little bit of a thing, I tend to withdraw. And that hurts me to not like clarify sooner. And then joy. Let's see. I had a lot of joy last night out in this room, like I was doing some art that Phyllis and I have talked about, and that brings me a lot of joy. And I have a lot of joy with the cold plunge, and then we go in the pool and kind of float. Brian scoops out all the leaves, and it just feels like joy. And I even said to him, do you think we can really do this podcast? And I felt joy when he was like, me and you together.
Forget about it.
I love it. Wow.
Wow.
Thank you, Christa.
It's beautiful.
Okay, well, let me give it a shot here. Yeah, I'm gonna start with shame. I feel shame that I brought up a very pain point with her after this date. There was a joy. It was the joy point. The date was we went to Stella's. There was a little get together for a company, and they played a movie afterwards. And it went so well. I'm like, okay, this is probably, she's in such a great mood that it's probably a good time to put this on her. But I feel shame and guilt that I brought her down on that. So that was bad. Hurt. I'm gonna put hurt and sad together. We lost one of our cats, and I didn't realize how much I loved that cat. And so it was super, super sad. And I felt a little bit of loneliness in that. Yes. Anyway, and then we used our last 2 weeks of vacation. So the fear of getting through the year is probably it. And I think, did I say them all?
Did you do joy?
Joy. I should. Yeah, the date night was super. We had a lot of joy and a lot of fun. It was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Amazing. Did you mention fear?
Yeah.
Okay.
You stuff there.
Yeah.
Because of their 2 weeks vacation. Yeah.
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 Real.
Yeah.
Dude, I would love to put a circle around that and show that to every man on the planet. That's and seriously, it's just that simple. When you live this, Christa knows what's happening with you. And just pick one. You're feeling the pain, the sadness, the hurt, the loneliness of losing the cat that was really special to you. She doesn't know that.
Yeah.
She's, I bet he's in a bad mood because I'm too much for him. He's annoyed with me or whatever it is happening for her. She's going to fill in the blanks because she's really smart. And she's going to fill in the blanks with 11 different things, none of which are actually real for Brian.
Exactly.
She doesn't know.
Right.
Whereas if he's able to say to her, I just feel some loneliness. I miss my cat because I love that cat. And I didn't even know how much I love the cat until it's gone. And it's just lonely. It's a pain experience. Again, as I said before, she'll just fall into you like, oh, yeah. And now all those fill in the blanks go away. She doesn't have to fill in the blank because she knows what's happening with her guy and she can dance with him. So,
Wow.
So beautiful. My gosh. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. Just means the world. And I know it blesses people when they hear the vulnerability of other people. And because when we have people on our show, it's not just us talking about it, right? It's you guys sharing your own story, how it has impacted y'all. And of course, love, especially when we hear from people that have been married 30 years and more, because it really gives a lot of hope, which Christa, you used that word even earlier, just the hope that it gives to people. So thank you so much. And we do all of this.
Yeah, we want to let everybody know that you need this.
You deserve this. So let's do this.
Wow. Thank you both so much. I am so honored that I not only got to meet you in person, but just to hear more of your story. Christa is such a light in the world. She is one of those people that if I could have someone just with me all the time, she is who I would want by my side. She is just such an incredible presence to be around. And I am so grateful that the rest of our community is getting to meet you now for the first time, Christa and Brian. So thank you for sharing your story and opening up our minds to what active listening can even do. It's easy to forget what an impact that can make in our homes. So if you are listening and maybe it's your first episode or it's your 84th episode and you still have not dove into our Foundations Masterclass, that really is, that's the main course of what we teach. It has all of our tools that goes far beyond just the core emotion wheel. The core emotion wheel is such a powerful tool, but to know about identity and cycles and all of the other elements that are holding us back in our relationships, that is where you learn it in our Foundations Masterclass. You can use the link in our bio and get 20% off using the code podcast. And I'm telling you, don't put it off. This course is changing lives everywhere. And we want our podcasters, we want our listeners to be the first ones to really know what these tools can do. So thank you all for being here. Click that link in our bio, and we will see you next week for another episode. Let's do this.